Fess after a while? Didn't she fess up?
I think she did, and then we had the case of Pat Tillman was another one where he was killed.
Friendly fire.
Friendly fire, but they said that he was, in a big firefight in Afghanistan, and they didn't release the fact that he was killed by friendly fire until, long after the fact. So his death, because he was an NFL football player, would be used to hype the patriotic fervor and the pro-war fervor that they wanted to create in the country. He was just used like as a tool. Just a tool to really, for these people to get what they want, to get their war for oil, their oil wars in Afghanistan and Iraq. But sometimes, like as far as the testing of these things, like the genetically engineered tomato, they did the testing with the genetically engineered tomato. They fed it to rats, right? So of course, if nothing happens to the rats, that doesn't always mean that nothing is going to happen to human beings that they consume.
That's right.
But when something does happen to the rats, then that's at least cause for caution and further testing to make sure that whatever happens to the rats is being caused by this substance before you approve it for public consumption. But did they do that with the genetically engineered tomato? No. They did tests and they found that like 40% of the rats died from ulcerated something that caused bleeding in the stomach of the rats. And what did they do? Well, they approved the product for public consumption because there was an agenda, right? There was an agenda being pursued by this. It was deemed to be a politically desirable thing to do. So it didn't matter how many rats died in the test. This was going to be approved for public consumption anyway. And the same thing with aspartame. They did the test with the aspartame, and they turned a blind eye and a deaf ear to the results of the test. And then when it was tested by researchers, they approved the use of, with MSG also, is another one of those things, where they found that there was research to show that the MSG was boring holes in the brains of the test animals.
Oh my God.
And they were using MSG, widely distributing MSG in the baby food.
Oh. Oh my
So we're
God.
distributing baby food that contains a substance that basically bores, that's been known to bore holes into the brains of mammals that it was tested on.
What about what they're doing in China with the baby food? What are they doing? They're mixing for baby formula, so women who can't breastfeed or, just they're using the baby formula. They're mixing it with cornstarch, sugar, and water, and they're selling this as baby formula. So the baby appears like it's getting heavier because the stomach's getting bigger, but the baby's actually dying of malnutrition.
Oh my God.
I don't think anybody puts more harmful materials or substances in the population in the pharmaceutical company.
Yeah, sure.
And they have the backing of the Federal Drug Administration, which doesn't test these things.
No, they don't care. Yeah.
And again, it's the bottom line is $1. Somebody's
That's
looking
all.
to make $1.
That's
The
all.
bottom
it
line
is.
to everything.
To everything. That's right. That's
Everything that happens, the bottom line is $1, especially in the United States. Especially in the United
Get
States.
the knives for Christmas.
Well, those programs you did on antidepressants and how they can cause suicide and murder. I was just watching a program just last week, and it was on one of the, I told you I watch those programs where they reenact true life stories. This little boy who was perfectly normal, the parents were going through a divorce, so he was depressed. Well, in our day, if you're depressed, if some kid saw a psychologist, but nobody did drugs. I don't remember anybody ever being told as a child to take drugs. So they gave him Zoloft, and he murdered his grandparents.
Oh, no.
And they sued the company. And the day before he murdered his grandparents, he loved his grandparents. He always loved. He said, that drug that the doctor gave me, it's how did he say it? I feel a burning inside. And the following day he killed his grandparents. And this was a kid who adored his grandparents.
How old was he?
I think he was 12. But the commercials that are advertising antidepressants do say when they do this.
Everything they do, everything,
Possible
they always show you
suicide.
possible side effects on
Yeah.
everything, every medicine.
And suicide is one of them that they always mention. They don't mention murder. I guess they're too afraid to say that. But people kill people who are
For the
antidepressant.
dollar, for the dollar.
Yeah,
Somebody's making a profit. And
sure.
Well, as we
Because-
explored on the show, like corporate profit motive doesn't explain what's going on. That there's something else going on.
Oh,
And as we've seen, the people that use these things are stripped of a large part of their humanity.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's people that take them that don't do these things and don't experience that pretty much function relatively normally,
I've
right?
seen people like that, but they still have personality disorders as a result of using these drugs.
Yeah, but they don't go out and
They won't kill themselves or other people.
like that one case we
but
just
they're
spoke about where the woman
nuts.
took 20 bites out of her elderly grandmother, you know, and left like chunks of flesh on a trail of chunks of flesh on the floor, or the you know, like the Columbine kids,
Right.
right? And that was something that was reported in the immediate wake of the Columbine incident, but we never heard anything about it ever again.
Right.
Because once the corporate spin went into effect, then that was a fact that it was like one of those uncomfortable truths that we can't speak about, like the additional bombs that were defused found in the Edward R. Murrah building in Oklahoma City. Right? Because only the truck bomb blew up, and the destruction to the building was examined, and they found that they couldn't have been caused by an external truck bomb.
Right.
That the damage to the building was caused by bombs that were set off inside of the building.
Mm-hmm.
And that was reported in the immediate wake of the Oklahoma City bombing, but then that was the last we ever heard of it. Because that was one of those, that falls into the category of one of those inconvenient truths. Those are one of those things that it's a fact, but we can't talk about it.
well,
Like the fact that Obama snuck off in the middle of the campaign trail, just weeks before the election, actually in June 2008, the annual meeting of the Bilderberg Group was held outside of Washington. And Obama and Hillary snuck off, you know, and the mainstream media was documenting their every move, where they would be every minute, right? The road to the White House is like the major media event. And they're tracking them, they know where they are every minute of the day, and know what their plans are for the next 5 days, and they know where they're going to be. Except for that one time where they snuck off to attend the Bilderberg meeting outside of Washington. Now all of a sudden, the press is like a bunch of idiots. Nobody knows where they are. It's a big mystery. We don't know what happened to them. They just dropped out of sight. And did they report to the public that this meeting is going on? No.
Of course not.
Because that was removed from the agenda of the mainstream media by executive order. That's one of the things that they are not permitted to speak about on the national airwaves.
But you heard it here on the Real News.
So are you telling me there was an executive order that no press report that he was at the Bilderberg meeting?
Not an executive
course not.
order in the sense that, like in the commonly construed linguistic interpretations of the term.
Not a presidential executive order.
Right. This is like the power behind the throne we're talking about here.
Okay, a power behind the throne order.
Right. Like David Rockefeller made a statement during a Bilderberg meeting thanking the Washington Post and the New York Times and some other major media publications for their cooperation with the Bilderberg agenda, because if the agenda had been had been scrutinized by the press and disseminated to the public, that there's no way the agenda would have proceeded the way that it did. So he's
Well,
thanking.
who would stop it?
Well,
Who could
you know,
stop
I'm
it?
not
There would-
stopping,
there
a
would
lot
be-
more questions would be raised.
Yeah, and there would be some kind of organized resistance against
As
it.
a matter of
There's a
fact,
lot
it's
of
illegal to
organized
even
resistance
go.
about a lot of things, and people say, what can you do about it? You
Yeah,
know, say the
that's
same
true.
thing.
Well, if you look at most
We
of
know
the,
it's wrong, but what can we do
if
about
you
it?
look at most of the organized resistance, it's like the analogy that they own all the horses in the race. Like if you look at, like I went to the offices of the Center for Constitutional Rights, and I'm looking around the office. It's like in Lower Manhattan. They're overlooking the harbor. Beautiful office building on the 17th floor of the building. I said the first question I asked at the meeting, I was like, well, who funds this operation? Who's paying for all this? Well, we get grants, they say. We get grants. Really? Who do you get grants from? Well, we get grants from like the Ford Foundation and